Hello, wherever you are in the world, we are so glad that you joined us. I'm Christine Barnhart, your host for Supply Chain Unfiltered. This is where we provide a candid look at the challenges that supply chain professionals face and bring in forward thinkers and innovators to share their insights on the strategies, technologies, and collaborative efforts shaping the future of manufacturing and supply chain. So before we get started, I want everybody to take a moment and tell me where you are dialing in from. I'll date myself this morning. Where you logged in from this morning. As you guys can see, I am here once again in my home office. Not that I haven't been traveling, and I just came back from New York City and the big Bengals win over the Giants. But I am here today, and I'm so happy that you are able to join us. As always, let me know where you're from, but also if you have any comments or questions as we go through the show today, do not hesitate to put those into the chat. If we can't answer them live, we will definitely follow up with you. So on that note, we have so much to talk about. I don't want to belabor it. I would love to welcome our guest today, which is Jason Tham and Bryan Sapot. I didn't say that correctly, did I, Bryan? Damn it.
No, you got it. It was correct.
Okay, great. Yep. I'm a Midwesterner too, but yeah. Phonetic spellings get me. So welcome, good morning, and good afternoon, depending upon your time zone. I know, Jason, you were just in Asia. So let's get started. And Bryan, I'm going to start with you because I want you to introduce yourself to the Supply Chain Unfiltered audience. Tell us who you are and kind of what your background is so that they can get to know you better.
Yeah, so I'm Bryan Sapot. Like Christine said, I am now the VP of Smart Factory at Nulogy. And my background really in business goes really far back. I say I'm afflicted, right? My parents, my uncles, my grandparents, like they all own their own businesses for the most part. And so from a pretty young age, I always wanted to do something. And to start kind of skip some stuff and go to the pertinent, manufacturing supply chain things. When I was 23 years old, I decided to strike out on my own and start a custom software development company. And my very first gig was writing an ERP system for a chocolate manufacturer in St. Louis, Missouri called Carl Bissinger's. So, as a 23-year-old, you think you can do anything, right? For better or worse. And we built literally a custom ERP that managed, production. It managed shipping, pick, pack, ship, orders, production costing, like literally everything but accounting for this company. And they used it for like 15 years. And that actually spawned a software consulting business that implemented other ERP systems and Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics for mid-market manufacturers. And I guess the reason why this is pertinent and where it leads to Mingo and where it leads to Nulogy is all of that experience over those 18 years taught me a couple things about manufacturing, because we were working side by side with Carl Bissinger's. I mean, for a while, for years, I had an office there to build this thing. And so it taught me a few things about manufacturing. Number one, manufacturing software, for the most part, is terrible, right? So especially this is the 90s and early 2000s. Nulogy does not fall into this bucket, but it's terrible. Like, it's hard to use. It's really complicated. If anybody's ever used SAP, they know this is the case, right? The other thing is, inside of manufacturing plants, they have a lot of problems, right? Like, every day is a different firefight. It is a very hard, complicated business. And there's a lot of finger pointing. So, like, for example, the people running the equipment will say that maintenance doesn't know how to maintain it. And then, maintenance will point to the engineers and say, engineers didn't build it right and spec it right. And then, everybody's, the maintenance people will say the production people don't know how to run the equipment. And eventually the loudest voice in the room wins that conversation, or, they're making decisions based on gut feel. And we wanted to build a system to kind of cut through the BS and say, here's the facts. Like, this is really what's going on out on the floor. And let's have discussions based on that rather than yelling at each other. And really, that's kind of the soft side of it. But the other side of it that we saw was, when you implement ERP systems, people want scheduling. Like, for the most part, like, I want scheduling and I want to understand how much it costs to make a certain part. So I know I know whether or not I made money, but I want to know like which products, what mix of products made up that profit. And one of the biggest issues is most companies don't know how long it takes to make a part, right? So like if I'm making these lids, these coffee cup lids, I know when we set up the process and bought the equipment how long it takes, but over time things change. The process can get better, the process can get worse. And you know, found that somewhere between your cycle times are off by like 15 or 20%, always. Like they could be high or they could be low. And the same thing for downtime. Like you probably have a lot more downtime making this lid than you realize, and a lot more scrap than you realize. And you don't really have a way to track that stuff in real time. So like these three things, manufacturing software being terrible, the finger pointing and yelling at each other, and then the schedules being screwed up is what really led me to create Mingo.
I love it.
Because, yeah, we wanted to, and what Mingo does is collect real-time data from the factory floor, from the machines, from these processes to give you accurate real-time downtime, real-time cycle times, and real-time visibility so you can understand what the hell is happening out on the floor.
So I'll have to say, Bryan, I don't like you telling people like how many years you've been doing this, because we started about the same time. So you're not just dating yourself, you're dating me, and I don't appreciate that. But you're also giving me a little bit of PTSD because I started in maintenance engineering, and I was like at the center of that. No, the engineers, they messed up when they, spec'd this equipment, or no, the maintenance technicians didn't understand, how to work on it. So like, you're like giving me some like, some pills there, to my days past. But no, 100%. And what's interesting, Bryan, is it hasn't improved that much over 18 years. So many companies have not taken advantage of incredible technology like Mingo, and I'm hopeful that we can change that moving forward. So, JT, I think most of our audience probably knows you, because you've been a guest on the podcast before. But why don't you refresh their memory, and tell them just a little bit about you and what your history is here at Nulogy?
Absolutely. Thanks, Christine, for having me. I'm super excited for being here and being here with Bryan, because I really think that as co-founder and CEO of Nulogy, I've shared with my company, I've shared with you, Christine, and definitely Bryan, that this is a bit of a refounding moment for Nulogy. This is such a big deal for us, I think, for Bryan, for our community of customers. So I'm very excited to just talk about it, and what to expect. My background, similar here, worked in manufacturing and food, specifically. Worked in contract manufacturing as well. And for many years, just saw the problems, that, yes, manufacturing is hard. And yes, you can't solve what you can't see. So everyone tries to get a better handle of their manufacturing data, whether it be downtime, whether it be scrap, yield, other different parts of information. So, the founding story from our standpoint was we came in from an angle of, and 20 plus years ago, I did code as well. So I know just a bit about that, and trying to solve a problem for manufacturing. And our vision at Nulogy was to enable more frictionless manufacturing, more sustainable manufacturing. And by what I mean by that is, particularly I observed where brands and manufacturers work together. Brands could launch, make, package, distribute products if they would leverage their external supply chain partners, the contract manufacturers, the third-party manufacturers, the third-party logistics providers, to be able to make that product. And it was difficult. So we wanted to unite that supply chain community, and through collaborative manufacturing. So that's been very much our vision. And I'm happy to talk about how Mingo fits so well in and complements that vision.
Don't give away the questions yet. Let me ask
I'm
them,
just really
or there's no
excited
reason
to
for
be
me
here.
to be here. All right, before we dive into why Mingo, why Nulogy, we have like what we call a fun follow-up. So here's the question. You have 30 seconds. If you weren't working in manufacturing or supply chain, what do you think you'd be doing instead? Bryan.
This is like impossible for me because everything I think about is manufacturing related. Like I would own another manufacturing company, like building bikes. I would do like technology with robotics. Like it all comes together. Like the only other thing that I could think of, and I can't do this, I don't have the physical ability. I would have been a professional cyclist and raced in the Tour de France.
Nice. What about you, JT?
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna build on that. One of the times when, well, beyond what Bryan and I nerded out on manufacturing, we did talk about endurance cycling and sports, and I think one of the, being the Olympics for triathlon or something like this. I think I would love to do that, and maybe in another life, Bryan and I would be on the tour and the peloton. I'll be the polka dot. You'd be in the yellow though.
There we go.
I love it. Well, okay, so for me, if I wouldn't have went down the engineering path, because I've diverged so much from where I started, I think I might have went down like the legal path. Like I really enjoy kind of like debating and utilizing like logical arguments to win my point. And I know like Bryan, you don't know me as well as JT, but JT is probably like, yeah, like I totally see it, Christine. So there you have it. So, all right. So we're going to dive in. Before we do, I want to say good morning to Daisy from Toronto. Good morning, Rob. It's always nice to see you online from Tennessee. So welcome. And Boomer would like to join the conversation this morning. Okay. So let's get into the juicy details. JT, why Mingo? You haven't done an acquisition previously within the context of Nulogy, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I think we definitely haven't. I've heard a lot about them, and others on our team have gone through them. But to find a high quality product, to find the high quality team, with a set of customers that are really happy about that product is difficult. And I wouldn't say it's because of the effort or the lack of effort of trying to find, we've come close, and we'll go through those details with other potential acquisitions that complement. But I've been very much of the belief that, it takes time and to find the right team, the right product, the right complementarity, the common vision, all that kind of stuff. It's just difficult.
Right.
And yeah, the companies come to us even, and they asked us in the past, could we join or could we, but, I think, finding a sustainable, company who has grown and stood on 2 feet, but has momentum is
Right.
also difficult. So,
Right.
yeah, we haven't done one, but it's never too late to start, and we've tried, and that's why I'm excited that we've been able to come together and join forces with Bryan and his team on complementing our vision.
So on that note, Bryan, why did you entertain this acquisition? How did you end up here?
So funny enough, it did start with a cold email. So cold emailing works in sales, just for anybody. But it was interesting. Cold email came in, and right about the time we were consistently hearing about Nulogy from our prospects, right? So we traditionally integrate with ERP or ERP-like systems like Nulogy Shop Floor all the time. And we were running across co-packers, co-manufacturers that were customers of Nulogy, and it kept coming up, and we were getting really good feedback about it and starting to figure out, hey, should we integrate with this thing? And we were introduced, Jason and I were introduced through this cold email. And I had always thought the home for Mingo was a company like Nulogy. I didn't think we'd find a company like Nulogy that would acquire us, because it's too, not to like pat ourselves on the back and talk about how fantastic we are, but Jason and the team have built a really great product, a really great culture. They've really dominated a market and become the leader in co-packing, co-manufacturing. And it was just sort of the perfect fit, right? Because they do things that we don't, that our customers were asking for, and we do things that, Mingo did things that, their customers were asking for, and, Nulogy didn't do. So that was really why it was perfect for us, because the synergies were just like too strong, right, to not do it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, I mean, kind of following that up, JT, what is the benefit that you see to Nulogy and Mingo's existing customers in terms of bringing these two solutions together under one umbrella?
Yeah, so as Brian alluded to, I think we know some of our customers have already identified that the opportunity here. They're trying to solve for being able to see more in real time their data, and as more contract manufacturing gets automated, to get down and leverage the sensors, leverage PLCs, get right down to sort of, I call it the substrate of that shop floor. How do you capture that data and all the elements of manufacturing, and ingest that so that you can make better decisions, not only for yourself but the broader manufacturing supply chain? That's kind of the problem, and the manufacturers who can identify that it's speed of being able to react, being more agile in this sort of high energy environment to address that black hole, because there's a ton of black holes in manufacturing. That black hole problem is what we identified, and then being able to now focus on that integration. I think customers can benefit, and we are obviously in conversations, and we're in pilots with common customers here to be able to demonstrate through this deep integration with both modern tech stacks. And that's, I don't want to digress too much into that, but as a bit of a technologist, I think you find manufacturing solutions, and Brian mentioned, like, in the 80s, 90s, whatever we were working in, we saw this. Some of this old stuff is not usable. It's not integratable, nor is it integrated, and not scalable. And that is something that we have a pretty high bar for. So to be able to integrate two modern tech stacks that are cloud, based, native, and being able to leverage that the data handshake, I think is what customers will benefit from that black hole solution.
Bryan, what would you want to add to what JT just said in terms of how does this impact Mingo's existing customer base? And then what are you seeing for the future in terms of customer acquisition within Nulogy's, existing market?
Yeah, I mean, it expands, our capabilities, right? So it expands, what we can offer our existing customer base. Like some of our, they're not small, but smaller customers are looking for, inventory systems, more production management, things like that. And then it also gives us the resources to continue to expand and follow the roadmap that we've laid out for the product. And really, from the other perspective, from the Nulogy side, I mean, I think Jason hit it on the head, but it's that real-time visibility to answer the question. Like anytime, if I'm plant manager or whatever, I walk out on the floor, I know what the hell's going on out there. Like, I mean, people always ask, like, why do people look for your solution? It's too bad you can't do this in Google. Like plant managers, the manufacturing execs, they all say, I just want to know what the F is going on out there, right? And this answers that question on a much more timely basis, I think, than you could get without the software.
Well, and I think also just the fact that, like, in today's day and age, why do I have to walk out on the plant floor to understand what's going on? Why can't I figure it out? Yeah, exactly. Right at my fingertips, right? I mean, like, I can remember when I was at Whirlpool, I would go in, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I would walk my part of the line just to see how it was running, see what happened overnight. But it would have been such a blessing to be able to go to my cubicle and log in and kind of have that data, as opposed to trying to guess what might have happened. So yeah, I love it. And I think for me, it's why, as somebody that works for Nulogy, I was really, really excited about the acquisition. So JT, kind of on that note, how does this, or does it, change Nulogy's, mission and long-term goals?
I think it really accelerates in many ways. It's the same vision. The vision's not going to change. and our vision, as it is to reduce that waste, increase sustainability, enable collaborative manufacturing. As was discussed a little bit on ERPs, there's been an unreal amount of money spent on mediocrity, and that unreal amount of mediocrity, that's fine. I mean, what I would also say is the fact that Smart Factory, Mingo, and Nulogy is agnostic to ERP. We've been very purpose built and focused for that manufacturing environment, means rapid speed to value. So why I say it's going to, I think, accelerate that vision is when speaking to many customers of Mingo's, I was, very pleasantly, but yet surprised to hear that, yeah, they could go live in weeks because it was so easy to use, that Mingo was designed for that app economy. It was designed for the worker on that shop floor, specifically for their use, and simplicity is difficult to achieve. So, getting that speed to value, getting that adoption, and like not having to worry about will I outgrow the solution? In fact, this can scale and will scale. And do I have to navigate this whole industrial IoT environment? The answer is no, because Mingo has solved for that.
Right.
And then what we can solve them together is bringing that data into a centralized place and independent of whatever ERP you have, because both Mingo and Nulogy is independent of ERP. And really hangs off really the platform. Then you can collaborate truly with your supply chain partners up and downstream, and that I think is very exciting for what we've always set out to be our vision.
I love it. I love it. And I liken this to this week I was in New York City and I downloaded the Metropolitan Transit Authority app and I would put in my location and it knew where I was and it would tell me how to get there, navigating the very complex subway system and public transportation system that is New York City. And I didn't need like a tutor. I didn't need a training session. It was just intuitive. Like I just understood how to use it. And I do think that that is what people are craving. I know, especially those that are younger than Bryan and myself, that's what they're used to, right? Like they grew up digital natives. And I think that they're really pushing companies to really look critically at the technology that they're putting in place to help them make better decisions. I mean, Bryan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they demand it. So like the millennials and younger generation, especially the millennials, as they're now moving into executive positions, they demand it. Like they think it's ridiculous. They're tied to a computer to be able to see what's going on inside of the plant. Like you have to provide it on a mobile device. Like there's just no reason. And it has to, like Jason mentioned, mesh sort of with the app economy out there and what people are used to 100%.
I love it. So you hit on this just a little bit, JT, when you said, we're purpose built. Nulogy was purpose built for contract manufacturing and co-pack. And it's interesting because when I wrote the question, I wrote fit for purpose. So kind of a play on those words. So how, like, in like 30 seconds or less, if I'm a contract manufacturer or a co-packer, why am I excited about this? Can you like sum that up so that, they can really kind of understand how this helps them potentially?
Yeah. So as a contract manufacturer or packager, you're making something, a finished good for someone else. You're not making, and often at the time there are changeovers because that something you're making for someone else changes, and you're responding to those demand signals, and you're doing it often at high volume. So you mess up, and suddenly, like money is made and lost on that shop floor. Even more so for those it's a difficult environment. Let's just face it. You're commingling, you're using a machine or some other resource, and you're serving multiple customers at multiple times and changing over maybe even mid shift or whatever it may be. So that is difficult. So if you don't have a source data capture strategy, when I'm talking about source data capture, capturing the data at the source, at the point of truth, when it's happening, as it's happening, and knowing, am I going to run over? Am I going to run under? Am I run optimally today? What is my blow-offs? What's my yield? What's my availability? What's my capacity? Can I make the decision? Because can I respond to my customer? Because I've already committed to making this. So first of all, if I'm making more of it unprofitably, I better like figure that out very quickly, right? And if a customer asks me, can I do something else for me? Then I got to be able to respond to that customer. Yes, I can do this at this cost, at this run rate, at this time. So, what Mingo and Nulogy is going to do now is answer those questions much more responsively and much more accurately, because we're going to get right down to that substrate, right down to that shop floor, leveraging IoT, leveraging sensors, leveraging PLCs, and being able to surface that information, not only for your organization as a contract manufacturer packager, but you can then use that information to better serve your customers. Hence, that customer will outsource more to you and you will grow your business and that whole ecosystem. Because I do believe more and more a brand actually wants to outsource, and they recognize contract manufacturers can do often things better than I can in my own facilities. But this is going to take it to the next level.
Well, and we've seen that, right? 30% of what you buy at retail is actually made by a contract manufacturer, co-packer, and that industry is growing in large part because of much of the innovation is coming through co-pack and contract manufacturing. So even big brands that traditionally haven't looked in that arena are starting to recognize that they need to be partnering and they need to build an ecosystem. So Bryan, like what do you think the future looks like, right? Like if you were, if you're a genie and you're looking in the future, how is, smart manufacturing going to impact the industry?
So from a business perspective, I think the folks that adopt these tools, and Jason just talked about it, they're going to run away with the industry because they're going to be able to do things that their competitors can't. Like people look at solutions like ours, Mingo, and then Mingo combined with Nulogy a lot of times in terms of cost reduction. But what Jason was talking about is the bigger impact. It allows you to really understand your capacity. So if a customer comes to you and says, hey, I want to give you this $10 million order, if you can take it, and if you can profitably take it and where you can fit it in. And the person that does not have this detailed information can guess, but they'll likely fall flat on their face because they're overestimating what they can do. So from a business perspective, the folks that adopt these smart manufacturing, smart factory technologies are going to run away with the business and crush their competitors. I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
No, it is. And we only have like 2 minutes, so I'm going to actually wrap this up. But so for me, Bryan, I feel like lean and JIT and value stream mapping, 20 years ago helped us get the low hanging fruit. And now we're talking about applying real-time digital on the floor technology to help us get those minutes that equate to hours in a day and weeks, and months across the year that are actually not productive, and where we're not actually able to utilize that capacity, so that we're really, raising the bar on how to be both efficient and effective in manufacturing.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay, so we only have a minute left. I'm sorry. So I want to find out, how can people connect with you, JT or Bryan?
LinkedIn for me. I'm the only Bryan Sapot in the world.
Are you the only Jason Tham?
I'm not the only one, but I think on LinkedIn, I'm one of the few, and definitely the only one, I think, in contract manufacturing or supply chain.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You can actually connect with the 3 of us live and in person at Pack Expo in Chicago, coming up in just like 2 weeks. I can't believe it's already here. In particular, we're having a reception on Monday with F4SS, and we would love for you to join us. So please come say hello. I would be remiss if we signed off today without giving a shout out to our show producer, Let's Talk Supply Chain, and encourage you to take a look at the wonderful work that they're doing to build up supply chain communities. If you are struggling to find a community of like-minded professionals where you can level up, network, learn about best practices from experts, look no further. Sarah and her team at Let's Talk Supply Chain have created the Secret Society of Supply Chain to provide a safe space. They offer unique opportunities for everyone to connect and give 3 different communities. So you can pick the one that's right for you. They have the supply chainers, they have the creative room, and they have the women in supply chain group, of which I am a part of. And I always learn so much and really enjoy the networking and the kind of peer-to-peer mentoring. So do yourself a favor, head over to the secretsocietyofsupplychain.com to explore which community was made for you. I also need to thank our show sponsor and my employer, Nulogy, especially since Jason is on the podcast today. Nulogy is an innovator in supply chain technology focused on decreasing the friction between suppliers and customers to everyone's benefit through collaboration and synchronization. On that note, goodbye for now, but hopefully you'll tune in next month when Tom Campbell from Capacity LLC is my guest, and we're going to talk about all things kind of co-man and co-pack and order fulfillment. It's going to be super, super fun. We'll probably be talking about everything that happened at Pack Expo and give you guys all the rundown. So see you next month.